Welcome to PENSARE Basketball. Some news out of Toronto Raptors training camp via Raptors Republic, allegedly, and of course, no reason to doubt this. The Toronto Raptors have shown their hand a little bit in terms of what their starting unit and backup unit are going to look like. Their top 10, and it doesn't include two of my favorite players on the team, frankly, four of my favorite players on the team, and four members of that infamous Jurassic 5 from last year. What does this mean for Ja'Kobe Walter's standing on this team? A team that is full of wings, full of guards, a team that wants to defend, a team that wants to run in transition, icing out one of their better potential defenders, one of their absolute best point of attack defenders, another one of their best point of attack defenders in Jonathan Mogbo. I don't think anybody walked into this season with expectations that Ulrich Chomsky was going to be in the starting lineup or on the backup unit. I think everyone understood this was going to be a multi-year process. I think most people looked at this roster, saw the glut of wings and switchable wings and the addition of Colin Murray-Boyles, the addition of, someone like Sandro Mamukelashvili, someone like Brandon Ingram, and said, you know what, probably Jameson Battle is not going to be in this unit. But some of us, especially a lot of us in this community, were like, should Ja'Kobe be starting? To go from should he be starting to he might not see minutes is kind of crazy. So let's take a pretty nuanced approach to this. Let's talk about what this means for Ja'Kobe Walter standing, Jonathan Mogbo standing, what it will mean when the Raptors inevitably make a trade, because they will make a trade. I assure you, there's one guarantee on this team. There's no playoff guarantee. There's no all-star guarantee. There's no play-in guarantee. There's no tank guarantee. There's no Ingram health guarantee. There's no Scotty superstar jump guarantee. The only guarantee on this team is that there will be a trade at some point between now and the trade deadline. And I think that's a good place to start this conversation. Last year, when we started this team out, I often believe that when people show you who they are, believe them. Last year, Davion Mitchell was ahead of Jamal Shed. And watching that drove me absolutely crazy. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I will not fall for the rage bait. Ja'Kobe Walter is very important to this team. I happen to have a little bit of insight into this as it pertains to trade discussions that happened last year. Ja'Kobe was not negotiated, but there are a couple players that were negotiated in those trade deals, and that was Ochai Baji, and that was RJ Barrett. And those two players are starting and are key backup. So just to break it down, the starting lineup for the Raptors on opening night, unless there's an injury, will be Jakob at the 5, RJ Barrett at the 2, Emmanuel Quickley at the 1, Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram at the 3, 4, however you want to slot it. The backup unit so far is looking like Sandro Mamukelashvili at the backup 5, which I completely agree with, Colin Murray-Boyles at the backup 4, Ochai Baji at the backup 3, Grady Dick at the backup 2, not Ja'Kobe, and Jamal Shed at the backup 1. Why do you do this? We knew this. Last year at the exit interviews, Darko said, hey, we're going to have more talent next year. We got a draft pick coming in. We need to, you guys are going to have to sacrifice. Guys are going to have to sacrifice. But as you remember, last year, there were quite a few players who started in the upper rotation. Kelly Olynyk was a rotation player. He was gone at the trade deadline. Bruce Brown was in the upper rotation. He was gone at the trade deadline. Chris Boucher was in the upper rotation for the most part to start the season, and he was out of the rotation by the end of the season when the Raptors pulled it apart. And it's very worth noting that Davion Mitchell was ahead of Jamal Shed, even though the Toronto Raptors had no intention of keeping Davion Mitchell long-term, as evidenced by the fact that he turned his season around, started playing really well, was arguably the best defender for the Raptors, and they still dumped him for a second-round pick. This is not a team that is prematurely reactive. This is not a team that plans for the day. As much as they want to say win the day, this is a team that plans with multi-year windows. And as far as the multi-year windows come around, Ja'Kobe Walter is a really big part of this team going forward. And I hope this has all been explained to him. I have it on pretty good authority that he's taking it in stride. But here's how I would look at this if you're a Toronto Raptor fan who's thinking, Rob, what does this mean about Ja'Kobe Walter's future with this team? Does this mean Ja'Kobe could be on the trading block? Because obviously, if this was Nick Nurse, it would mean Ja'Kobe was on the trading block, right? That would mean that Ochai Agbaji is a better player than Ja'Kobe Walter. Gradey Dick is a better player than Ja'Kobe Walter. So clearly, if you want to win this year, which clearly the Raptors do, Ja'Kobe would be the odd man out. If you want to clear some salary cap space, as evidenced by the fact that the Raptors are over the tax line, Ja'Kobe is exactly the salary that you would shed. Mogbo is the salary you would shed to get under that tax line. And these are both players in their second year who flashed a lot of brilliance in their first year, especially late in the season. Jonathan Mogbo was the only rookie last year who had a triple-double. Right now, he's out of your rotation. What does that say about your rotation? So let's start there. Let's approach it with door number one. Door number one, I will entertain the hypothetical. The players ahead of them are just better right now. And so Mogbo and Ja'Kobe Walter just need to sit. That's door number one, and that is the one that I don't agree with. But let's go there. Is it true? Arguably, yes, it is true. You can make a very serious point or an argument that CMB right now is a more complete basketball player with fewer holes in his game than Jonathan Mogbo. Both are weak shooters, but CMB is a stronger finisher. I think they both have multi-positional tools defensively to guard 3 to 4 positions, but you could make an argument that CMB is a little bit younger. Obviously, he's a top 10 pick. He's a much, higher value asset. If he blows up, the consequences of it are huge. He is 3 years younger. There's a lot to edge it in favor of CMB. If the talent gap is not huge between the older second-round prospect and the younger first-round lottery prospect, the decision will almost always go in favor of the younger lottery prospect. So let's give the edge there. That's fair. Is Ochai Agbaji a better player than Ja'Kobe Walter right now? The analytics would say yes. The analytics would argue that Ja'Kobe was very inconsistent last year and that he flashed moments of brilliance. And for anybody who didn't watch this team regularly, didn't watch multiple times, every single game, multiple times like I did, you might be just remembering the game winner, the big deflection, the big block, the big dunk. You might be remembering those moments and you might say, well, isn't Ja'Kobe like a better player than Ochai? No, he's not. He's not a more complete fourth, fifth option than Ja'Kobe Walter, right? So, sorry, he is a more complete fifth or fourth option than Ja'Kobe Walter. What Ja'Kobe can do can morph into like something much greater. Ja'Kobe is also the younger player, the higher pick, in terms of like the priority for the Raptors. People have, a Raptors Republic, they reference that, hey, the Raptors moved off of a first round pick to get Ochai. Do we remember that first round pick was a 29th overall pick in a really weak draft? I would argue, regardless of where Ochai was picked, 14th overall, you didn't pick him 14th overall. You picked him 29th overall, as far as I'm concerned. And so from that perspective, I think it's okay to admit right now that Ochai is ahead and that he was ahead the last time we saw them, but that Ja'Kobe could pass him soon. But as of right now, I think Ochai's positional versatility, he's just a hair better defensively. I'll give him that. He's a better rebounder right now. Again, by a hair. Ja'Kobe has a lot of rebounding chops. He's probably a little bit more physically developed. He's probably a little bit better guarding down a position. So if the Raptors intend to switch a lot and run a lot and, play high pickup points, and there's going to be a lot of cross match potential because there's going to be turnovers. And so maybe at this point, Ochai, just being a more physically developed player, has a better chance of guarding 3s and 4s and just spacing off. You don't need Ja'Kobe's dribble drive creation right now, which is the one advantage I think he does have over Ochai, is that his game is a little shiftier and, his handle is a little bit more dynamic. You really don't need that with Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley. And so if you're thinking about like who's the fifth player that I want to put with that unit, it's probably Ochai. I get that. What about Gradey versus Ja'Kobe? Can we make an argument that Gradey is better? You can make the argument that Gradey is better. He is bigger. He has more of a reputation as a shooter. He has, even though I can argue Ja'Kobe was a lights out shooter, I think if you're the Toronto Raptors, you're probably looking at this from the perspective that, okay, neither were dominant defenders. If Ja'Kobe can take a little bit of a, if Gradey can take a little bit of a step up defensively, he can probably make it so that it's negligible between the two, right? At least last year versus this year, even though I don't think he has the potential to make it negligible long term. We can make an argument that Gradey being a little bit bigger, our defensive concepts being a little bit more friendly to him this year, like we're not putting him full court guarding point guards and shifty guards. We can hide him a little bit. you can make an argument that his movement shooting, his incredible cutting ability, his very cerebral, by the way, understanding of the game for a player that young, Gradey has a lot of upside in that sense. With a little bit more physicality, maybe Grady's a better finisher. With a little bit more strength, maybe he's a little bit better at getting to his spots. Maybe with a little bit more strength, which he's clearly added this offseason and everyone's been praising it, maybe he is the type of player who can be just a little bit more steady as a jump shooter. I mean, like, something that is often not talked about is jump shooting requires some strength and stamina, right? Like, players often struggle from going collegiate three to NBA three, in part because of upper body strength required to heave the ball a little bit further. So maybe Ja'Kobe's jump form or jump shot form just required him to put on a little bit more additional size, a little bit more strength. And we've seen some brilliant performances. I think we can all agree that as high as most of us are on Ja'Kobe Walter, the best we've seen of Gradey is maybe just a hair better than the best we've seen of Ja'Kobe. And also comes down to this: who synergizes better with Colin Murray Boyles, your big new shiny toy? I think Gradey and Colin Murray Boyles have incredible synergy, like on the dribble handoff potential between those two. My God, he spaces the court really well. He's a great movement shooter. He's a very underrated transition athlete. Connective passing is actually, I think, a little bit underrated as well. I think Gradey has some passing chops that maybe Ja'Kobe doesn't. Ja'Kobe's greatest weakness, going back to Baylor, has always been he doesn't see the court as well. Well, today on playback, Ox and I were breaking down a game between, the Golden State Warriors in 2016 and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we broke down this play in the fourth quarter. You're free to, definitely go watch the game yourself. It's on YouTube. This is the game where Steph Curry hit the game winner and hit 12 threes. And we were dissecting just how poorly Kevin Durant was reading the court and how terribly he was picking up his dribble and just taking a long time to map the court. And if you want to talk about Kevin Durant being like the greatest player, one of the greatest players of all time, the only blemish in his game that you can really point to is the court mapping. It's just not on the level of LeBron, Luka, Jokic, Jordan, etc., Magic, Kobe even, right? Like, how quickly you're seeing the court. And I think very often Ja'Kobe would beat his man and then be surprised when the help defender came in. I don't think he sees the court as well as Gradey. So a lot of advantages for Gradey. So, and Jamal Shed is obviously the only backup point guard on your roster. And so, okay, boom, the better players are playing. Nobody should be complaining. That's door number one. I don't think that's actually the truth, but I like to entertain hypotheticals and play devil's advocate. And I think that's one way to look at it. Door number two. Door number two is this is not going to be where we end up at the end of training camp. This is day 2. We got preseason. And so maybe the thought process here is, I know Jonathan Mogbo is a dog. I'm going to talk to you as Darko Rakovic for a second. Just pretend that I'm a little bit older, from the same hometown, so it shouldn't be too hard. Darko doesn't wear baseball caps, but I do. So let's assume for a second that I know Ja'Kobe's a dog. I know Jonathan Mogbo is a dog. And so putting them with the third unit is just my means of making them beat somebody out for that spot. I just want them. I just want them to fight. It's just like maybe Nick Nurse knew that Fred VanVleet was going to go over DeLon Wright, and that Pascal Siakam was inevitably going to beat out, for the first spot. But maybe putting Fred behind DeLon Wright makes him work a little bit harder. Maybe putting him behind Corey Joseph makes him work a little bit harder, making him think he has to earn it. He has to beat those guys and pushes him just a little bit more. So that's door number 2, is that while it may be this way on day 2, day 3 of training camp, it's not going to be this way on day 12 of training camp and day 3 of preseason. Okay. Door number 3. The Raptors actually don't have a second unit. The Raptors have a 12-man rotation, and Mogbo and Ja'Kobe are a fluid part of that rotation. We have a dated concept of maybe stems from hockey. And of course, a lot of people who cover the Toronto Raptors also happen to be hockey fans. I am not a hockey fan. Some of you may be disappointed and dislike this video for that, but I am not someone who has, digested a lot of hockey in my life. So I don't necessarily even think of things in lineup shifts. But a lot of people think of it as like, this is your starting 5, this is your backup 5. The Toronto Raptors have a head coach who comes from the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies are also innovating the NBA in terms of pace. The Pacers innovated the league in terms of pace. A lot of the teams that play fast don't pick up as high defensively as the Raptors. And a lot of teams that pick up high don't play as fast as the Raptors. So it's The Raptors are going to do both things. And last I checked, every single player on this team is still a human being who is going to get tired playing at this pace. So the only way that I can think of to counteract this is probably a little bit more egalitarian with your approach, a little bit like Rec League, where you're going to have maybe shorter stints. You're going to have Scotty Barnes coming out at the 5-minute mark instead of the 6-minute mark. Sorry, the 6-minute mark instead of the 5-minute mark. Maybe you have BI come out at the 4-minute mark instead of the 5-minute mark. The possessions will be the same because the pace will be higher. So you'll still get the same number of shots. Why do players want to do this? One, it's good for your numbers. If you want to be really honest with yourself, it's much easier to average 20 in a high octane efficient transition offense than it is to average 20 in a low octane grinded out offense, right? So players will buy into this. It's also easier to buy into being exhausted when you're winning. So obviously the proof of concept here will be work hard, produce wins. If you work hard, if you work this hard and you grind yourself to a T on defense and you don't win, well, now you can have a revolt on your hands and players aren't going to be dialing up. And then you end up in a season like last season where there was that pitiful stretch of basketball where the Raptors were getting blown out every night. That's what happens when you try to play aggressive basketball and you don't lock in. The margin of error when you play this fast is so small. It's almost a wonder that any team would ever dare to try and break the speed limit of basketball. But that's what the Raptors are attempting to do. So my question is, at this point, is one of the ways to get around this just going deeper into your bench. Play 11, play 12. Every single night you play 12. A hypothetical rotation may include stints of 3. So 3 guys come on the first shift at 4 minutes. 3 more guys replace guys at the 2-minute mark. Then you have starters come in at the start of the maybe you have 2 starters come back at the start of the second quarter, and then you have a new shift of 3. So if everybody knows I'm just going to get 5 minutes a half, let's say Ja'Kobe and Jonathan Mogbo are only getting 8 minutes a game, and they're because they're the final guys of this rotation. If they only know, and again, they're the type of athletes who can do this. That's impressive and important in this situation. They are the type of high motor, crazy, aggressive, event disruptive type of defenders. If you tell them, Ja'Kobe, Jonathan Mogbo, y'all getting 4 minutes every single half, go balls to the wall, foul as much as you want, get us more possessions, go rebound the shit of the basketball, run in transition. If you let them know you only got 8 minutes a night, you might get like the highest impact 8 minutes out of those 2 guys as humanly possible. So that's door number 3, is what if the Raptors just intend to go deeper into their rotation? Door number 4, and I think this is probably, I'm not denying that there's a chance that it's multiple things, but door number 4 is, I think, the most plausible door. And the most plausible door is that the Toronto Raptors intend to trade someone or multiple people that are currently in the upper rotation, and that one of Ja'Kobe and Jonathan Mogbo will compete to replace the player who is traded. Now, if I had to bet, the 2 trade targets are quite obvious. It's RJ Barrett, Ochai Agbaji. Happened to listen to RJ Barrett's comments on the trade rumors. He handled them with a lot of grace. To anybody who's going to come out here and say, why are you always talking about trading RJ Barrett? I'm not always talking about trading RJ Barrett. I've made multiple videos this offseason about why RJ Barrett is really good. I actually think RJ Barrett could really help this unit. Unfortunately, the economics of the NBA are that RJ Barrett is making $27 million. RJ Barrett wants an extension, and the Raptors don't have money. So this is not going to be an indictment of RJ. I don't think it's an indictment of him at all. I think he's a very talented player. I don't know if he can be a starter on a championship team, but I do think he is an upper rotation player on a championship team. I don't see anything wrong with him to the point where, for everything you want to point to that say, okay, well, he doesn't do this well, I can point to a thing that he does do well to make up for it. 6'6" guys who can handle the ball like him don't grow on trees. Teams usually waste lottery picks every year trying to find RJ Barrett's, right? If you want to talk about physical drivers, he's the best one you got. If I'm being completely honest, he's the best one you got. If you want to talk about a guy who can consistently get paint touches, even if those paint touches aren't always the most efficient finishes, he's the best one you got. So if he dials it up defensively, man, He could be invaluable for you. At which point you might have to trade somebody else. So one of, if not both, RJ Barrett and Ochai would be my obvious targets. There's no way, as I said earlier in the video, there's no way in hell under any circumstances that the Raptors are walking out of this season with the exact same 17, 18 guys on this roster. There will be adjustments. My guess right now is that one of Chucky Hepburn, Ulrich Chomsky, and Elijah Martin will be cut at some point. I hope it's not Ulrich. I will protest very loudly. But one of those three guys is probably going to be gone. I would almost guarantee that one of, if not both, if not all three of Gradey, RJ, and Ochai will be shopped at the deadline for upgrades. At which point it will really matter that those guys are actually playing and producing for you. This high octane offense, this transition, heavy offense. We all know this doesn't work in the playoffs, right? Like, we're not stupid. We watched basketball for the last 25 years. We understand that transition offense, when everybody starts to play hard, you playing hard doesn't matter anymore. This may get you through the regular season. This will get you a lot of numbers. This will boost the trade value of your players, especially if you're winning. If you start to get out to like a 17-12 start and Ochai is shooting 43% because he's never been more open in his life, and he's averaging 8 points per game off the bench, and RJ Barrett's averaging 18 on efficient splits, what those two guys are now worth to the Celtics, the Pacers, or literally anybody in the league is exponentially more than they're worth today or what they were worth last year. The Raptors may be the biggest issue, in my opinion, and this is an opinion thing. One of the biggest issues with the Raptors through Masai Ujiri's tenure, and I'm curious to see if this will change with Bobby Webster's tenure, is the same issue that the Utah Jazz have had under Danny Ainge's tenure, which is sometimes when you get used to ripping people off, when you just get used to just ripping off the entire league, your expectations adjust to unrealistic levels. When you think about what the Raptors did when they made that Gravis Vasquez trade, they ripped off the league, man. When they made the Kawhi Leonard trade, they ripped off the Spurs, man. When they, like, so many trades that the Raptors made in that initial, We the North run, they kind of ripped off the entire league. So they expected to keep wanting to do that. Like, why wouldn't we want 5 first-round picks for Pascal Siakam? Why wouldn't we get 3.5, 4 first-round picks for, OG Anunoby, and a first-round pick for Chris Boucher, and a first-round pick for Gary Trent? Give us all. But the problem is the Raptors have been signing increasingly expensive contracts, and for a little while there, they weren't doing a very good job of exhibiting their players. That's where Darko comes in. As much as you want to quibble over Pascal Siakam's role in the initial, season that Darko had him, I think he exhibited him perfectly. And I think part of how Darko used Pascal early in the season is what got the Indiana Pacers interested in Pascal. Now, had Pascal actually performed well in that role, maybe the Raptors would have been able to extract an extra first-round pick, maybe an extra asset, maybe they would have gotten Andrew Nembhard, because there would have been a competing offer. But I think the Indiana Pacers were able to see, oh, he's able to play off a point creator like Tyrese Halliburton, because here he was playing a little bit off of Scotty Barnes and Dennis Schroeder. I think it's very important to realize that the Raptors under Nick Nurse did not do this very well at all. I don't think they exhibited Siakam. I don't think they played fast enough. I don't think they never really did that. They just weren't efficient. They didn't put Siakam in positions to be efficient. And so year after year, while he would rack up big numbers, it wouldn't be the greatest analytics. Teams would kind of scoff off that. They'd be like, well, this guy's not really that franchise level player. And it's kind of interesting because you have this sort of blindness, because you know how good Pascal is. You know how good OG is. But the league can't see that. With the system that you're running, the league can't see that. And so now, in my opinion, the Raptors are running a system which is going to maximize the value of all your players. Every single player on this team should benefit from how the Raptors intend to play. There's not a single player that I can really think of where I'm like, oof, this style is really going to hurt that player. No, this style is absolutely going to help Brandon Ingram. Transition, spot up threes, cuts to the basket. This helps. It's going to make him more efficient. This might make him more efficient than he's ever been in his whole life. Participating as a starter in what I expect to be a top 14 defense helps the reputation that he's not a good defender. RJ Barrett, another guy who a lot of people are seeing as like empty calories on a bad team. Yeah, sure, he put up 25 and 6 on a, but they were losing. Well, now he'll be putting up, I don't know, 18, 5 and 4 or 18, 5 and 6 because again, more assists, more possessions, more rebounds, more points. 18, 6 and 5, but now he'll be on a winning team and he'll be more efficient because he'll be getting, again, the most open shots of his life. Emmanuel Quickly, the Albatross $32 million contract. He will, in theory, again, unless he has a massive shooting slump or an injury, he should be more efficient. Jakob Poeltl should be more efficient. You know who gets easy looks with Brandon Ingram? Jakob Poeltl and Scotty Barnes, CMB, Jonathan Mogbo. Any player who sits in the dunker spot is going to get easy slip passes from Brandon Ingram. The Ingram trade may have cost you a very now valuable first round pick from the Indiana Pacers, but it got you the most talented offensive player you've had here since Kawhi Leonard. And that's not a lie. That's the truth. Brandon Ingram is a total polar shift away from players like Gary Trent, Fred VanVleet, and much closer to Siakam. The value of a jumbo creator who immediately draws a second defender anytime he catches the basketball, but unlike Durant, who he is often compared to, does not need 4.5 to 5 seconds to survey the floor. So the question becomes, why? Why does Ingram often take 5-6 seconds before he makes a move? Why is he so slow? And at 28 years old, can Darko change this? Now, here's a hallmark of Darko Rajakovic. He's made Emmanuel Quickly a better point guard. He's made Scotty Barnes a better player. He's made Gradey a better player. He's made Ja'Kobe a better player. He made Dennis a better player. I believe there's a fork in the road of Dennis's career from the Los Angeles Lakers to the Toronto Raptors. And from that day, Toronto Raptors onward, you could argue he did a lot, for Team Germany, whatever. He was coming off, a lot of international success. But I would argue that stint with the Raptors changed his trajectory. I think from that point on, he was seen as a very higher upper rotation player. And I've seen him become better. Davion Mitchell. Where was Davion Mitchell? I was convinced this guy would be in Europe next year. Comes to the Raptors, struggles mightily, might add, becomes a much better shooter, becomes a better playmaker, goes to Miami, $24 million. I don't know if y'all are taking the bird's eye view on this, but every player who comes here gets better with Darko, better with this system. Jama and Darko are like miracle workers when it comes to basketball development. Whatever the Raptors are doing here, it's magic. And so Brandon Ingram is the most talented player, and they're choosing to develop him. Okay, I will argue there are exceptions to this. Bruce Brown did not get better. Kelly Olynyk did not really get better. Those are two players. They didn't last long. Ochai Agbaji got better. Can we not agree? Ochai Agbaji had the best year of his life. RJ Barrett has had the best years of his life. Emmanuel Quickly, despite what people want to say, the role difficulty of being a backup point guard and like a fourth option versus what he's doing right now, he's a better player today. Everyone has gotten better. The question is, and this is something that I asked when I petitioned for the Raptors to tank as much as I have over the last couple of years, is what happens when, in my opinion, one of the top 3 development staffs in the league gets a real A1 star. Okay, A1 is gassing it a little bit with Ingram, but a real 5-star prospect. You know what I mean? Like, you could be a coach in Louisiana or Edmonton, and you're like the best development coach in Canada or in Louisiana, and you just like working miracles with these like 2-star, 3-star type of prospects. But what happens when you get a 5-star? What happens when you can take all of that knowledge, all of the implementation, all of your communication skills, and you can harness it into someone who actually has the talent to do this shit? I've seen players like this. I've seen trainers like this. In fact, my interview with John McCall, one of the things we talked about was his work. I don't know if he's listening. I'm gassing this one up a lot. Trust me, it's a good interview. It's coming out this weekend. I apologize for taking so long to to edit it and stuff. I've been busy as hell this week with Raptors, preseason rolling around, all the stuff, catching up with Media Day, 4 appearances on PC, this 5 appearances, 6 appearances on PC this week, WNBA playoffs. There's been a lot of stuff going on, so I apologize. I'm a little bit backlogged on the video content. But what I was saying is something we were talking about was how Jalen Green saw what he was doing with another player, saw the jump that that player took, and said, if he can do that for him, I can only imagine what he could do for me. And Jalen Green got a lot better when working with John. So I look at players like Asar, I look at player like Amanda, I look at player like AJ, and I'm just like, okay, now you're working with tier 1 athletes. You're not working with 4 stars and 3 stars anymore. Ingram's best season may be ahead of him. It might be this year, it might be the next year. And if you are an Eastern Conference rival, that should be a very scary thought. Because if Brandon Ingram has come here truly with an open mind, and I hear that he did, I hear that, I heard this a couple of weeks before he got traded here, that he was looking out of New Orleans. They had a couple destinations in mind. Toronto was really high up on the board. He really loved what the Raptors were doing. He liked the vibes. He liked, their coaching staff. And he most importantly just liked the fact that they shared the basketball and weren't selfish basketball team. And so, I draw it back to this, right? I promise I'll get right back to the Ja'Kobe and Gradey and all that stuff. I'll cap off this episode with that. But to just speak on BI for a second, I was watching this game with Ox today on playback, the Warriors and Thunder game that I referenced. And to end that game, Russell Westbrook takes this crazy ass fadeaway. Kevin Durant has fouled out, so he's just having to watch his team struggle without the ability to help them. And then what happens the other way is Steph Curry comes down and makes this excellent read and pulls up for a 3 to put the Warriors up by 3. And then Russell Westbrook launches, I think, an air ball on the subsequent play. And I wonder, thinking to myself, when we were having this debate about why Kevin Durant wanted to go to the Warriors, and I think a lot of people very lazily rushed to this idea that KD just wanted to go to the Warriors because he was a ring chaser. He didn't want to compete. He just wanted to join a super team. I disagree. I think if I was an A1 superstar who had to play with Russell Westbrook for years, play under Billy Donovan, play in that bullshit offense, play with Andre Roberson and Kendrick Perkins and all of these spacing atrocities around me, Enes Kanter, and all the players that were around that was just getting in the way. The idea of going to Golden State and pairing up with Steph and Clay and Draymond would be very exciting. If you are trying to become a recruiting destination, you have a lot working against you. You're a cold weather city. You're on the East Coast. You don't get ESPN. You're in another country. There's a lot working against you. You got taxes, the border, politics, American ignorance. There's a lot of stuff that's working against you. And oh, by the way, you got Rodgers, and you got, you no longer have Masai, the championship recruiter right at the top, selling the hopes and dreams speech on all those free agencies. If you want to sell this team to free agents, you have to sell it through player experience and player development. You have to be able to show people that when you come here, you get treated right, you get paid well. That stuff has to be there. And let's just be real, that's not the case for 66% of teams in the league. So, say what you want about the Clippers. They have a top rank infrastructure. You get paid under the table to plant trees that you never plant. That's their competitive advantage. So barring, the Toronto Raptors deciding to break the law and circumvent salary cap, to circumvent the salary cap, this is going to have to be your competitive advantage. You're going to have to show the entire league that it's fun to play in Toronto. Okay. Etrix saying, is BI's team now? No, it's still Scotty's team. And I think Brandon Ingram knows that. And I hope that you know that. But maybe you don't know that, at which point, who cares? But the point here is BI will be the leading scorer on this team. I think Scotty will be close. I actually do. I really do think I think Scotty's going to average more points this year. I think ESPN projected him to average 18 points per game. I think he can average more. To talk briefly on the BI, Scotty, RJ, IQ shot distribution, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. This is a 5-on-5 game. I promise you, I will not be spending time this year, discussing whose team this is. This is reductive, silly talk. It doesn't matter. If you're winning, these things don't matter. The reason these things have mattered so much over the last 4 years is because we've been a losing basketball team and people need to blame somebody. But I don't think BI or Scotty are selfish at all. They are two of the least selfish wing creators in the NBA. I think they'll play beautifully off each other. I think they're actually the type of players that a lot of players like to play with. That's actually an additional thing for the Raptors going forward, is if BI really works out for you long term, he and Scotty are absolutely the type of person that a third star would love to play with. If I'm Devin Booker, I'm calling my agent. Get me to Toronto. I could be the leading scorer with these two, and they will let me be the leading scorer on this team. If I am Giannis, I'm calling my agent. Get me on this team. These two, especially if Scotty can shoot at some point. If I'm literally any star on in the league, these are a dream. This is a dream duo to play off of. Scotty can do all the little stuff. He can, he can defend. He can lead my defense. He can hit threes occasionally. I think, today on IG, I broke down his 3-point shooting form. If you're a follower on IG, I hope you appreciated that. I think a lot of people did. A couple coaches reached out to me and said, good job on that one. Scotty could have a 37% 3-point shooting year this year, and I think the two best players on your team being unselfish, it just bleeds down to everybody else. I don't think BI would complain at all if he had 12 points, 13 points in a game. He's not sitting there sweating that. Scotty not going to complain if he has 4 or 5 touches and a half. He doesn't care. And that's the scary thing. Unpredictable offense is scary. That's why heliocentric offense is so scary, because one guy gets the ball and then 4 guys become threats. You know what offense really sucked? Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. That kind of sucked a lot. Those two trying to play my turn, your turn basketball and just kind of getting in each other's way. That was oil and water. I didn't like it. I mean, maybe I'm a hater or something, but I loved Kevin. Why was Kevin Durant so much more successful in Golden State? Largely that, man. He had better teammates around him. Did he? Yeah. Yeah, he did. He did. Let's just be real. He did. But it's not like he had slouches around him in OKC. I think in more cases, in more ways than one, he just had a more unselfish superstar next to him. Steph Curry just didn't care. Steph Curry doesn't mind. Finals MVP, have it, KD. No problem. Scotty, same spirit. BI, same spirit. Neither one of these guys are forcing shots when they don't have it. Neither one of these guys are necessarily going to freeze out their team when they got a double team. You know how many times Jonathan Kuminga does that every single game? Do you go watch Basketball Breakdown? If after this you want to go and see what I'm talking about when it comes to low IQ basketball. B-Ball Breakdown did a video on why Jonathan Kuminga was not getting love from the Golden State Warriors, and he just ripped the guy. And he was just talking about how often he will just do the wrong thing. He will not, he will take a shot that he's not supposed to take, cut into space that's designated for Curry, not set a screen to, not set the pin down, which is an automatic to get Curry open on the corner. He just doesn't do these things. So the question now with Ingram is, you have the right idea. You have the right spirit. You're an unselfish guy. We know this. I've been watching Ingram for a very long time. I've never associated him with being a selfish basketball player. You're also a player who's averaged 27 points in a game for a season. You can't think of that many players who've averaged an efficient 27 points in NBA history, actually, if you're being completely honest. So while he was the second option in New Orleans, it makes a lot of sense for him to be your leading option here, because you don't have an offensive player as dynamic as Zion. Can he do the other stuff, though? Can he slip the screen? Can he set a screen? Can he participate? Can he be locked in defensively? That's your whole season right there. If BI locks in, if BI takes the level of jump that RJ did, if BI takes the level of jump that Scotty did, if BI takes the level of jump that Ochai did, Davion did, if the development staff has actually worked with him for as long as I've been hearing they worked with him since the trade, they've been working with him, getting him better, getting him stronger, getting him more connected with his teammates, breaking down film with him, teaching him how they want him to play. Could we be seeing the best Brandon Ingram ever? Yes. I think you're going to see the best Brandon Ingram ever. And you know what's crazy? The best Brandon Ingram that we've ever seen is like an efficient 27 point per game jumbo creator. That's better than Cade Cunningham was last year. Do y'all realize what I'm talking about? I'm talking about like a top 20 player in the NBA. Cade was like 7th or 8th in MVP voting last year. The best version of Brandon Ingram is better than that player. And the best version that's the best version we've ever seen. He was more efficient. He was better. He finishes at the rim. He's a 3-level scorer. He has an endless bag of counters. He is an amazing passer. He has great. If you took his passing up a level, Devin Booker, Desmond Bane, RJ Barrett, how many players have come under Darko's influence and become better point guards? Scotty Barnes. There's a lot. So if you did the same thing with BI, who was already better than all of those guys combined, movie, cinema. At which point, the trade that you make, getting back to Ja'Kobe and Jonathan Mogbo, because that is the subject of this video, and I want to honor that's not clickbait to talk about Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and their dynamic for 20 minutes in Darko's development program. To talk about Ja'Kobe and Jonathan Mogbo, I think they're going to be a big part of this organization going forward. I personally think Ja'Kobe is the future 2 guard. I do. I see the future being blank point guard, Scotty Barnes, Ja'Kobe Walter, Brandon Ingram, blank center. That's how I see it. That blank center might be Jakob. It might be CMB. The blank point guard might be Jamal Shed, might be Emmanuel Quickly. It might be someone who's currently not on this team. It might be John Morant. It might be De'Aaron Fox if it doesn't work out in San Antonio. I think if I'm ranking out who are the staples of this team going forward, these are my guys that I think. Let me give you. This is my ranking of players. I'm not moving these players this season, come hell or high water. Number 1, Scotty Barnes. Don't ask. I won't. I will hang up on you if you call me about him in the middle of the season. So trade deadline, Scotty Barnes, untouchable. Second player that's probably untouchable right now, Colin Murray-Boyles. I think CMB is pretty close to untouchable for this team right now. I think it would take an offer of like 2 first-round picks and a good young player to get him off this team. From what I'm hearing, they're super high on him. I talked to someone last week about how they felt about him at the draft. They were just like, bro, like they were so insanely high on this guy for the last 2 years. They love him so much. They think he's so underrated. They think they can take his game to the next level, blah, blah, blah. So you could actually even think to yourself, like, this guy might be a starter at some point down the line for the Raptors. So that's probably the second guy that I think is pretty much untouchable. The third guy I think is pretty untouchable right now is Brandon Ingram. I think they love him. As much as, there's been a lot made of, it was a Masai trade. Bobby wasn't thrilled about it. I think it would take Brandon Ingram being really awful for them to move off of him. I think they really like the guy. I think the fourth guy is Ja'Kobe. I don't think Jacoby's going anywhere. And I think the fifth guy is Emmanuel Quickly. Those are the 5 guys. Everything else is pretty fluid to me. If those 5 guys, I don't think any of those 5 guys will be in trade negotiations at all this year. Everybody else, who knows? RJ Barrett. I think Jakob could probably be put on the 6th level. I think they just value his stability. Maybe Garrett Temple could be the 7th guy. They just, obviously, he's not going anywhere. But everything else is fluid. Obviously, I think long-term, Ja'Kobe might, who knows? If this is the case, if he is truly, the 11th, 12th guy, how do we know that Jamison Battle isn't above him? And that maybe Ja'Kobe and Jonathan Mogbo, let me open door number 5 for a second. What if Ja'Kobe and Jonathan Mogbo are about to take a G League stint with Ulrich and Elijah and Chucky? What if that's your future? Like, that's your future bench that is going to just get endless 905 run for like the first 2 months of the season and then come into the rotation when you see the progress. If you want to develop Jonathan Mogbo into a full basketball player, asking him to be a fifth option and play the Kevon Looney role ain't going to be it. He's not a center. That's the only role you have for him right now with all the wings you have. So maybe his best option is to go and try to be a small forward in the G League. That might make some sense. And if Mogbo can buy into it, which really at this point he doesn't really have a choice. He's a 2nd round pick on a 2-year deal with a team option. It's not like he's Jonathan Kuminga or Josh Giddey, like a lottery pick where he can just write his own, ticket and be like, I'm not happy with my role. Get me the fuck out of here. No, I think he has every reason to trust this organization with his long-term development. They're not going to screw him over, and they're going to give him every chance possible. But that being said, maybe the best thing for Ja'Kobe and Jonathan Mogbo, and this is my door number 5, is high repetitions at the G League level. Who are your shot creators of the G League this year? Who are the guys who are going to take 15, 20 shots? Are you going to go back to AJ Lawson? Or maybe it might be smart to sign a guy like AJ Lawson to your 15th roster spot, keep him, on your team, maybe round out your rotation with Garrett Temple and Jamison Battle, and then send Ja'Kobe, Jonathan Mogbo, and all these guys, send them to the G League for the first 2-3 months. And I don't think this is any indictment. From what I've heard about Ja'Kobe, he's had a great summer. Jonathan Mogbo also had a great summer. Both players put on a lot of weight. Both players did a lot of work on their shooting. I think both players are a huge part of the Raptors going forward. Obviously, I'm a little bit higher on Ja'Kobe than I am on Mogbo. And it's interesting because at the draft, I was much higher on Mogbo than I was on Ja'Kobe. Proof, perhaps, that I can change my mind. Okay, let's answer some questions here. Troy Knights, shout out to you, a member. IQ can be traded this year, packaged with RJ. IQ could have been traded last year, my friend. I believe. He didn't have a poison pill in his contract. Let's check it out. A lot of Troy Knights here. Is Troy the only member who's commenting right now? Okay. RJ is a classic player that the dynasty starts after. That would be sad, wouldn't it? Look, emotionally, I would love RJ to stay. I really would. Logically, I get why he has to leave. I kind of get it. Ironically, emotionally, I wanted Bargnani to stay too. I really wanted that first overall pick to work out for the Raptors so I could prove everybody wrong. But the reality is, the revolution started after Andrea. It's also interesting to note that we've heard some stuff about Andrea and why the team didn't like him, because apparently he had a lot of really dumbass teammates. I'm gonna be really honest. Andrea's career just went totally backwards from 2006, 2007 till 2013, 2012. His teammates got dumber and dumber and dumber and less mature and less veteran laden every single year, and he totally suffered for it. It's interesting. Last year, Darko Rajakovic speaking out in defense of Andrea, saying if we had Andrea now, things would have been a lot better. And I don't disagree with that. Allegedly, the rumor came out that Andrea had said something to the Italian media about how the Raptors need to make better decisions, with their roster. And apparently it had been kind of misconstrued, mistranslated, and sent back to the Toronto Raptors players, who confronted him when he came into the locker room and were very upset with Andrea, saying, "What the fuck did you mean about that?" And Andrea tried to defend himself, but apparently at that point, Terrence Ross and all those guys, they just weren't with Andrea anymore. And they did everything in their power to just sabotage his time in Toronto. And you know what, Andrea? Goran Dragic went to the same fucking thing. And had Andrea had a teammate like Scotty Barnes, that entire thing would have been smoothed over in 12 seconds, because Scotty did a lot to smooth things over between Goran Dragic, and he was doing that as a rookie. So, yeah. Anyways, all in all, training camp allegedly is going very well for the Raptors. The vibes are immaculate. Shout outs to Raptors Republic for covering training camp. Samson and Esfandiar are there, and they've done so they're doing the vlog buddy cop footage thing. It's been great. It's been really great. They're obviously editing it out. They send the footage back to Raptors Republic headquarters. They got an editor, edit it out, and then sometime around 3:00 they do that, and then 5:00 the video drops. It's been great. It's been really great. I wish the Raptors themselves would offer some sort of access like that. It's actually completely new. I don't recall anyone doing this, so it's actually really amazing. And with a media pass, maybe I would like to do something similar myself next year. That would be actually pretty cool to cover the team that way. Apparently, there's an interview between Samson and Gradey coming out tomorrow on Raptors Republic, which should be very interesting to listen to, since Samson is such a huge Gradey fan. and is able to dissect X's and O's with him in an interesting way. I always learn a lot from Samson's sit-down interviews with players. So that's going to be really cool. And yeah, I mean, overall, look, man, this is training camp. It's preseason. We are 4 days away. 4 days away. It's October 2nd. Preseason just kicked off today. The Knicks and the Sixers played, and we are 4 days away. 4 days away from the Raptors kicking the Denver Nuggets ass. Can't wait for it. The Denver Nuggets are going to be a very interesting team this year. We're going to see Jonas Valanciunas. We're going to see Bruce Brown. We're going to see Nikola Jokic. Jokic busted Scotty's face last year, thus resulting in Batman Scotty. Bruce Brown said, he loved Tim Hortons, and then talked about how he couldn't wait to leave. Well, he said, the second I got to Toronto, I couldn't, I was thinking about coming back to Denver, which has been misconstrued. That quote is really not as serious or bad as it really needs to be. I mean, he was being shopped the second he got here. The Raptors had every intention to turn Bruce Brown into a first-round pick from Denver or from some team that was desperate to compete. And what's kind of ironic is they were never able to find a trade because Bruce Brown was an absolutely ass basketball player. So can't wait to see if Bruce Brown is no longer an ass basketball player. Had a long discussion today on the panel. Shout outs to those of you who watch Players' Choice on the panel. I will also be on tomorrow. We will be talking about contenders. We will be talking about contenders on the panel tomorrow. We will be talking about dark horse contenders. Give me a W. Give afterwards on this video. Once this video goes live, let me know which teams you want me to cover. And these are the teams that I'll research tonight because y'all know I research for the panel. I was going to talk about Orlando a lot, and I was probably going to talk about San Antonio, but I'm actually thinking, do I want to make a whole bunch of Americans mad? Should I talk about Toronto as a dark horse championship contender and just let everybody just get really, really mad? The Pistons. My God, Daniel. The Pistons. The Pistons. I like this. The Nets. Yes. Troy Knight saying, did you talk about that Mike leak about Scotty? Yes, I did. Multiple times. Does CMB have shades of Thaddeus Young, says James? In the sense that they're 6'7", multi-positional, good rebounders with decent defensive shots, and yeah, sure, there's plenty of Thaddeus Young there. I think the potential to drive offense is better than Thaddeus Young, though. Thaddeus Young didn't get a lot better until later. John Hamilton saying Cleveland. They're not a dark horse contender. They're actually the team that's picked by most people to come out of the East. So I don't think they're really a dark horse contender. But I see why you're saying they're a dark horse contender, since most people think OKC will repeat or Denver. I mean, who are the contenders really? I really kind of want to talk about the Orlando Magic. And there's like a 1% chance that the Hawks could represent the Eastern Conference, and maybe, the Knicks, like the Knicks and the Hawks are in that tier. I am very high on Orlando this year. I am insanely high. I just think the combination of Jalen Suggs plus Franz Wagner, like I just think that defense is going to be so elite, and I just love the addition of Desmond Bane. But I'm also a really, really big fan of what the Raptors did. So the Raptors, Hawks, Orlando Magic are like the three most improved teams in the Eastern Conference for me. Golden State Warriors are a contender in my opinion. So this Kuminga situation kind of inches me away from them being a contender, although I really love the addition of Al Horford. It's really great. Stanley saying, Gradey has more potential to bend the defense if he only figures out to use his length to stay solid defensively more than Ja'Kobe. Okay, so both players have put on 15-ish pounds. Okay, let's just say hypothetically 10 to 15 pounds. Both players are coming in stronger. I think Emmanuel Quickly, to me, is the one player who I expect to be like surprising everybody. And people would be like, oh my God, I can't believe ESPN didn't rate him top 100. ESPN's stupid. Well, we already know ESPN's stupid. But one of the biggest reasons that ESPN is stupid is because they actually didn't rank Emmanuel Quickly as one of the top 100 players in the league. And he absolutely is one of the top 100 players in the league. I would put him over Yak. I would put him over RJ. I really would. Like to me, it's actually criminal, insane that they didn't put him as a top 100 player. He does so many things well. That being said, the few things he didn't do well last year were handle physicality in the paint on finishes and defend well. Emmanuel Quickly, Ja'Kobe, Walter, and Gradey Dick all putting on 10 to 15 pounds this offseason, if that is to be believed. I mean, preseason training camp, this guy put on 15 pounds of muscle, talk like we've been there before. But I got to say, if he's just dazed, if he got like you know, if he got some strength to him, and Ja'Kobe got some strength to him, and Gradey got some strength to him, this team's immediately so much better. Like, they just didn't have a lot of strength last year, man. That's why Davion's so good, because Davion is so freaking strong, right? So Jamal Shed, these guys were just all physically weak. You're looking at, like, think about the 5 guys who were really weak last year, right? RJ wasn't weak last year. Scotty wasn't weak last year. Yak wasn't weak last year. Those guys didn't struggle that much. But Emmanuel Quickly, Ja'Kobe Walter, Jonathan Mogbo, as broad as he is, he wasn't very heavy, and that's why he often struggled, right? Finishing through contact, finishing in the paint, etc. Ja'Kobe Walter, great, like all these guys. Jamal Shed, Emmanuel Quickly, Ja'Kobe Walter, Gradey Dick, Jonathan Mogbo. These 5 players that played a ton of minutes for you last year were all physically underdeveloped. Darko has gone as far as to call Gradey Dick a 16-year-old girl. The other day, he called him a child. He said when he got here, he was like a child. So, again, biggest reason to struggle in the NBA is physicality. What we're hearing out of training camp so far is Colin Murray-Boyles is super physical. Scotty called him a beast. This is a very, very, very good thing, because that means right now, can I just say, rant off like for 2 minutes to close this live on how impressed I am with Colin Murray-Boyles. There's something about this guy that I've really liked him for a long time. Just so we're clear, yes, I pushed for Carter Bryant propaganda like a crazy motherfucker at the draft, but I've loved Colin Murray-Boyles for a very long time. I am so impressed with his poise and his demeanor when it comes to competitiveness. You got Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram in the starting unit. And when asked about the physicality of your defense against those guys, you say they can't do anything about it. Dude, he might have more alpha in him than anyone on this team. And I love it, because an alpha on your second unit can really push your first unit to grow a pair. And he might, Scotty hella tough, BI hella tough, RJ hella tough, IQ tough. A lot of tough guys on this team. Can he be the toughest of the tough guys? Can he be like, nah, fuck you, give me the ball, get out of my way, I got this? What is CMB going to look like in his prime? I think that could be a scary idea, man. There are limitations, obviously, to him, but his game is very good. Like, I don't know how to say it. There's a lot of people who didn't watch him last year. I was talking with Ox on Playback today, and we were talking about how many games I watched this year, and I said 940. And people in the chat were just like saying, like, oh, we're just lying now, huh? 940. And I'm just like, it's so funny to me that the same people saying I'm lying about 940 games are the same people who telling me I age like 2 years and look so tired all the time. Bro, I'm look tired all the time because I'm watching like 9 hours of basketball every single day and talking about basketball for 4 hours a day. This has been the most transformative year of my life in terms of covering basketball, learning about basketball. This has been insane. This year has been some of the hardest work of my life, and I'm very happy I did it. And one of the a little part of that hard work was watching South Carolina games. And man, oh man, Colin Murray-Boyles was so freaking underrated. They couldn't do anything without him. When he went to the bench, they fell apart. But he was on the court, he was a one-man wrecking crew offensively and defensively. The closest thing to LeBron James in collegiate basketball last year was probably Colin Murray-Boyles and Cooper Flag. Like, those two were like singular in that mold archetype of driver of offense, creator of defense type of archetype. There's a really decent chance that this guy just plays himself into the starting lineup, in the event of an RJ Barrett trade. If he can shoot, it's a no-brainer for me. Like, his defensive versatility, his solid base, his dog mentality, the driving, the physicality, the rebounding, the extra possessions, and just how he maps the court. That's one thing I always see is like, I know some people know this. I watch games very slow. People will often make fun of me because, you know, if we watch a game together, sometimes I'll stop it, I'll rewind it because I have DVR and I figured out how to use it. I'll rewind it and then I'll slow it down, blip, 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 blip. And what I want to do is I want to see, when did he see what he should have seen? And I did this with CMB a lot, where he'll take his defender to the nail. The help defender will approach from the wing. I want to see when he sees it. When does he register that that help is coming? Does he pick up his dribble? Does he turn the ball over? Does he spin through the contact? Does he continue going away from the help? Or does he shift the defense in order to create a pass? At what point did you see it is the most important thing when it comes to breaking down prospect film for me. And for him, I remember looking at my Excel sheet when I was like grading every single game. When did he see it? When did he see it? I looked back on it like after he was drafted. It was like almost 8 out of 10 every single night. 8 out of 10 in terms of his spatial awareness, court mapping, defensively, offensively, how often he's in the right position, wrong position. He's just an insanely smart basketball player. Like that big head, he got like the biggest brain on this team, man. Like I would not be surprised if he's just like some sort of genius, you know, human, like who's gonna become like an astrophysicist someday or some shit. Like he's just super smart. I don't know how he's gonna use that smart. So he might use it in some other walk of life. He might use it academically. I wouldn't be surprised to find out he's a 4.0 student or some shit like that. Like that dude is just like he's seeing shit on a completely different level. He could become like that great connective passer. And you know what? Congratulations to the Toronto Raptors. You know, 4 years ago, y'all thought you got the next Draymond Green and Scotty Barnes. I've screamed from the rooftop. You did not get Draymond Green. Scotty is a completely different beast, different animal, different type of player. In Colin Boyles, I really do see a lot of Draymond, but the defensive side is Draymond. The offensive side is something completely different. Could you imagine an RJ Barrett offensively with Draymond upside defensively? Like a poor man's RJ Barrett offensively and Draymond defensively is like all NBA. Like you have a lot of potential with this guy. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see him. It's not going to be right away. It's going to be bumps. He's still a rookie, et cetera, et cetera. But man, half the battle when you're a rookie is thinking you belong, knowing you belong, doubting whether you belong, trusting your jump shot, thinking, oh my God, did I jump too early? Am I good enough? Am I ever going to be good enough? Etc. All these doubts that swirl through the heads of most people. There are some people who are able to bypass these thoughts. Scotty Barnes was able to bypass these thoughts on day one, and that's how he came out like gangbusters and won Rookie of the Year. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, I would be very surprised if Conor Boyles wins Rookie of the Year, obviously, because he's not going to be starting on day one. Cooper Flag, DJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey. There's so many rookies that are going to get more of an opportunity than him, but I really wouldn't be surprised to see him make an all-rookie first team or all-rookie second team, and I'd be very happy for him. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. 1 hour and 3 minutes in. I will add timestamps very soon. Please give this video a like on your way out. And shout outs to Ja'Kobe, Walter, and Jonathan Mogbo. We are all pulling for you, and I think that you will land on your feet within this team. You're just going to have to be a little bit patient as the Raptors figure this out. Peace, guys. Have a great night.